The Boy Who Drew Cats. A long time ago, in a small country village in Japan, there lived a poor farmer, his wife, and their children. Everyone in the family worked very hard. When the oldest son was only 10 years old, he helped his father in the fields. The little girls worked with their mother almost as soon as they could walk. Later, when the girls grew older, they stood ankle-deep in the muddy waters of the rice field, helping their mother all day long. The youngest child, a little boy, didn't seem fit for hard farm work. Although he was cleverer than all his brothers and sisters, he was quite weak and small. People said he'd never grow very big. This worried the poor farmer and his wife. What would become of their son if he didn't grow strong enough to become a farmer? One day, the farmer and his wife took their little son with them to the village temple. There they asked the priest to take the boy as his pupil and teach him all that a priest should know. The old priest spoke kindly to the lad and asked him some hard questions. The boy's answers were so clever that the priest agreed to take him into the temple. The farmer and his wife went away happy. Their problem solved. Their son would become a priest. The boy learned everything that the old priest taught him. But he had one fault. He liked to draw cats during study hours, and to draw cats when cats ought not to have been drawn at all. Whenever he found himself alone, he drew cats. He drew them on the margins of the priest's books, on all the paper screens in the temple, and on all the walls. Several times the priest told him this wasn't right. Still, the boy did not stop drawing cats. One day, the priest caught him drawing some very clever pictures of cats on a paper screen. The old priest was upset that the boy continued to be disobedient. There was only one thing to do. "My boy," said the priest, "you must go away from this temple at once. You will never make a great priest, but perhaps you will become a great artist. And now let me give you a last piece of advice. And be sure you never forget it. Avoid large places at night. Keep to small." Well, the boy didn't know what the priest meant by saying, "Avoid large places, keep to small." He thought and thought while he was tying up his little bundle of clothes to go away. He didn't understand those words, but he was afraid to speak to the priest except to say goodbye. He left the temple very sorrowfully and began to wonder what he should do. He was afraid to go home. He felt certain his father would punish him for being an artist when he should have become a priest. And then all at once he remembered a village a few miles away which had a very big temple with several priests. He made up his mind to go there and ask to become a pupil. Now that big temple was closed up, but the boy didn't know this. And the reason that it had been closed was that a goblin had frightened the priests away and had taken over the place. Some brave warriors had gone to the temple at night to kill the goblin, and they had never been seen alive again. But nobody had told these things to the boy. He walked all the way to the village, hoping to be kindly treated by the priests. When he got to the village, it was already dark. All the people were in bed. At the end of the main street, he saw a light in the temple. People who tell the story say the goblin used the light to tempt travelers to ask for shelter. The boy went at once to the temple and knocked. There was no sound from inside. He knocked again. He knocked again. Still nobody came. At last he pushed gently at the door. It wasn't locked. He went in and he saw a lamp burning brightly, but no priests. The boy thought someone would surely come very soon, so he sat down to wait. He noticed that everything in the temple was gray with dust and thickly spun over with cobwebs. These priests, he thought, would certainly be happy to have a pupil who could keep the temple clean. The boy looked around the room. The dust was a great puzzle. But it was quickly forgotten when he noticed several big white folding paper screens standing in a corner. What harm, he thought, in painting a few cats? Surely they would make those plain screens much more beautiful. After he had painted a great many cats on the screens, the boy began to feel sleepy. He was just about to rest his head on the floor to sleep when he remembered the warning: avoid large places at night. Keep to small. Oh, the temple was very large. As he thought of the words, the boy began to feel a little afraid. He decided to search for a small place to sleep. At last he found a little cabinet with a sliding door. He crawled inside and shut himself up. He lay on his side with his knees drawn up to his chin, and he fell fast asleep. Very late in the night, he was awakened by a most terrible noise, a noise of fighting and screaming. It was so dreadful, he was afraid even to look through a crack in the little cabinet door. He lay very still, holding his breath from fright. The light that had been in the temple went out, but the awful sounds continued. If anything, they grew more terrible in the darkness. All the temple shook. After a long time, silence came. Still, the boy was afraid to move. He didn't move until the light of morning sun shone into the cabinet through the crack in the door. He climbed out of his hiding place very cautiously and looked about. The first thing he saw was that the temple floor was covered with blood. And then he saw lying dead in the middle of the floor an enormous rat, bigger than a cow. It was a goblin rat. But who or what could have killed it? His eyes scanned the room. When the boy saw the screens, a terrible cry burst from his lips and echoed in the empty temple. The mouths of all the cats he had drawn were red and wet with blood. With the passing of time, the boy became a man, and the man became a great artist. And even today, travelers in Japan can see some of his pictures of cats.